Welcome. Welcome to the Conviction Fiction, a podcast that challenges the narratives surrounding incarceration and celebrates those accomplishments and successes from those individuals that have been formerly incarcerated. All right. My name is Antoine. I'm your host, and we're going to get right into it. Now, River Runs, we basically celebrate the extraordinary journeys of those who have overcome adversity. We believe that every individual, regardless of their past, possesses the potential for redemption and success. In this podcast, we delve into the inspiring stories of incarcerated individuals who have transformed their lives and made a positive impact on their communities, from entrepreneurs and business leaders to activists and community organizers. We look at the challenges that they face and how they made it through the way. We also discuss the systematic issues that contribute to incarcerations and the importance of criminal justice reform. Join us as we break down stereotypes, challenge misconceptions, and celebrate the resilience and determinations of individuals who have defied the odds. Together, we can rewrite the narrative and create a more just and equitable society. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining. We are here live. We have a special guest today, and we are just waiting for him to join. But since I'm here, I just wanted to just talk about some of the things that what this podcast aims to do. We aim to, get out the narrative, and more so than get out and change the narrative of what's been going on. We also want to create the opportunities for those individuals like myself, where we can actually work together with other individuals that have been through the same thing, that are facing those challenges, and to encourage each other to overcome some of the stigmas that are associated with people that have been to prison. I mean, most people that I know, somebody or are in association with somebody, or I don't know, people get locked up for whatever reason, right? Maybe it's because of, youthful indiscretions. Maybe it was because, hanging with the wrong crowd or whatever, which that's what I want to really talk about in another episode is hanging with the wrong crowd a reason for you to go to prison? Is hanging with the wrong crowd a reason for you to leave your family? If you have kids, to leave your kids, is that a reason? And that's what I want to talk about in a later episode. But today we got Robbie Garrett. I know Robbie, we've been in association with each other for over, I want to say at least 20 years at least. And he's going to come on at some point to share exactly the challenges and the triumphs, because that's what we want to do. We want to celebrate the successes of formerly incarcerated individuals. I got a great lineup coming for you. We're probably going to have, I'm not going to give too much, right? Just stay tuned in and you will see just exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast. And then if you have any, if you want to contribute, if you want to log in, if you want to sponsor this podcast, because what's most important is being able to get a job after you've been incarcerated. How do you get a job after you've been incarcerated? So we got the Facebook chat and we have Instagram. We're streaming live all over the world. You can find us on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you listen to your podcast. Please chime in so we can get you on the air. Now, it's just a couple of things that we want to really make sure that you guys understand. We're as your host, I'm going to keep it unadulterated. That's why it's labeled explicit on this channel. Because sometimes, motherfucker gonna cuss. Motherfucker gonna cuss. And it's important that, being able to come from where you are. No matter where you are, we're not going to be demeaning people. We're not going to be on air, throwing up gang signs or none of that, because that's not what this podcast is focused on. It's focused on your successes, your personal journeys. Okay. Everyone has a personal journey, especially if you've been incarcerated, right? So one of the questions that a lot of people ask is like, can you describe how you've changed as a person over the last 20 years, or whenever you were incarcerated, how long ever you were locked up? How have you changed? Now, for me, I can describe how I've changed as a person over the last 20 years by letting you guys know that I'm more proactive than reactive. And when I say that, I'm saying that we are pretty much, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to delve over into like the personality, the criminal personality or whatnot. But I'm not even going to go there. Not tonight. I'm not going to go there tonight because this is our first episode. Want to welcome you again to the Conviction Fiction. But I've changed over the last 20 years. One of the biggest changes that I've recognized is that I am more proactive than reactive, meaning I am more prone to do things ahead of time, to keep everything in front of me. Because what happens as a criminal or former criminal, right? When things started to pile on top of me, when I became more anxious or I start suffering from anxiety, that's when I would be more reactive, right? It's like, hey, it got to go down now. It's going to happen now. I don't care. I got to live, right? I was a more reactive person. And I've learned over the last 20 years how to become more proactive by, creating my own rules, right? Starting to line up the things that you need to do and how you're going to do them is very important. And, being able to prevent going to jail or prevent going to prison. You have to become more proactive. Now, there've been challenges, man. I got married, I had kids, and this was after prison. I was married and all that before prison. I had kids and stuff like that, but now more so, I'm keeping everything in front of me. All of those things that I was just telling you about is very important to keeping me safe, right? Keeping me focused on the goals that I have, right? So it's very important that you guys tune in, man. Tune in, subscribe, make sure that you hit all of the links that you see on your screen that may pop up. And another thing, somebody asked me, what was your first thought when you walked out of prison? Right? The first thought that I had when I walked out of prison is I'm scared. I was totally scared. I was socially awkward when it came to working with civilians. I mean, even with relationships, that was one of the most scariest moments, leaving prison, because I had been praying for release, right? Most of us, if you unless you in one of them psychotic wards or some shit like that, you always think about getting out. You always think about the first thing I'm going to do. It reminds me of that scene back in Life, the movie with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, when they sat on, I don't know if you guys remember that scene. Some of you guys might be a little bit too younger to understand what life meant. That movie, but it was definitely a wonderful movie, great movie. I mean, it's one of the classics out there. But there was a scene wherein they were the inmates. You got Martin Lawrence, and I'm not going to get into the details of like the storyline behind it, but they were all laying on the bed, and all of them had these big ass dreams about once they get out. And I can relate because I had fucking big dreams when I got out. And most of those dreams are coming to fruition as I continue this journey post incarceration. And that's all I wanted to remind you guys is like, you cannot think that this is it for you. No matter where you are, no matter what you've been through, you still have a chance, right? And I'm not going to go all like religious or spiritual on you, but if you can wake up knowing where you've been, right? Just think about it. While you were on that cot or that bed or in that dorm or in that cell, you had dreams of what you were going to do when you got out. Well, guess what? You're out now. You're out. What are you going to do? Right? Every day that you are giving breath, it allows you to make those dreams come true. In the movie, I think one of the characters, they wanted to start a club. One of the characters wanted to start a restaurant. One of them wanted to be like this big music promoter or club promoter, right? And through that scene, I realized, and that's why I watched that movie to this day. I don't know. Shout out to life, man. Shout out to Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy for putting that together, because that's a classic, especially coming from where I'm coming from. So when I walked out of that prison after doing my time, I do want to remind you, I was scared. Even though I had those big dreams in my head, I was still scared to actually make those dreams a fruition. I was like, what if I fail? Like, what if I end up being back in the cell? What if I end up being back in this prison? And so I'll never forget, my family came and picked me up. My sister, shout out to my sister, love you to death, girl. You're a rider for real. And I just want to remind your husband that he has a true rider, even though you ain't really about all that kind of shit, which is good. You know, I'm not, dissing or no shit, no disrespect to my brother-in-law, no disrespect, but like, I know that your wife is a rider because she's my sister. Okay, and I can remember like riding. I had been in a vehicle besides being in like handcuffs and chained to the back to some other dudes. I had never been in a car ride before for the amount of time, and you can go back and read my bio. I was locked up for a significant amount. However, I was able to get out after being set off and doing all that stuff, and I had those big dreams. And so when I walked out of prison, I had like this little bag with all of my personal belongings that I had got out of a box. It's like, about that box, right? You got a box with all your personal belongings in. You probably got like a combination lock on it, right? So I got all of my belongings because most of it I had gave away, and then we'll talk about that when Robbie joins. But like, what was the things that you gave away, right? You had some creep ass dudes that wanted pictures. You had some motherfuckers that wanted like, deodorant or fucking any tobacco. I was like, nah, I'm taking the tobacco, bro. I paid for this shit. This car ain't coming with me. I might need that shit. I ain't got no job, I don't want nobody to be asking, or I don't want to be asking and want to buy me no fucking tobacco products now that I'm home. But it was very small, right? And then your family, well, my family, I'm just talking about my situation. My family brought a change of clothes for me and a pair of shoes, right? Other than that, I didn't have shit. Right? So walking out of that prison, my first thought was like, this shit ain't gonna work. I honestly believe like all those dreams and all those thoughts that I had in my head before getting out, that they wouldn't happen. That's what I thought. I don't know what you thought. Go ahead and chime in if you're on the links, or if you're on Facebook or Instagram or any other social media platforms that we are broadcasting on. Please go ahead and share your thoughts on that. Um, but yeah, those thoughts are real. And what we want to remind you on the conviction fiction is that you got to stay focused. You got to stay like on your grind. You got to keep going. And another thing that we come across in our lives is like there are some key moments that shaped who you became while you were in prison. So key moments for me, I guess, we can talk about the regular stuff like stabbings and all that other different stuff, but it was a counselor. This was around 9/11, and I'm gonna get personal right here, because around 9/11, I was locked up in 9/11. I mean, I saw the shit, when they turned on the TV. I saw the shit and I was like, damn, that's some crazy ass shit. Somebody had a bad accident. But then we saw the second plane and all that shit happening, And so we had these free world people that would come in. They were counselors, rehabilitation specialists, and whatnot. And this is one of the most defining moments that made me become who I am today. And it kind of shaped my whole stint while I was there. And the counselor, I was working, in a little job, and and at the same time, I kind of hung out around the programs because honestly, they say them programs get you out, So I was like, shit, I need to do what I need to do to get up out of here. So I jumped in a few programs, and I was talking with one of the counselors who had served time, who had did time and whatnot, and came back and was. He was starting a halfway house on the other side, and he was doing. I kind of looked up to the dude because at the end of the day, this is what one of those dreams that I envisioned would entail. I would get out, probably, start like a counseling outfit or something, or try to help people get out and stay out. Well, anyway, after 9/11, he looked at me. He was like, "Do you understand what's going on?" I was like, "Nah, not really. I mean, I thought it was an accident and shit. I don't know what exactly happened." And he asked me. He was like, "Do you think?" And I'm gonna ask you guys because this is the same question he asked me. Are you where you're supposed to be right now? He looked me dead in the eyes and asked me if I felt that I was where I was supposed to be. Okay. Now, mind you, I had did like a couple of years by then, and he asked me, "Are you where you're supposed to be?" And I looked at him like, "Hell nah, I'm supposed to be in here. I'm not supposed to be in here. Like these motherfuckers are savages, bro. And we'll get into a savage conversation because I've done some savage shit, but that's neither here nor there. That's not who I am, and that's not how I want to be defined. And most of the listeners and the people that are on this podcast that you will see and that you will interact with, they're not on no savage shit, bro. They just want to make a life for their families and themselves after not being equipped to deal with the rhythm and role of life, right? Because that life has they'll throw you some curveballs. You got your family, you got your environment where you came from, you got poor schooling. You can have 1,000,001 motherfucking excuses why you went to prison, right? But this show is dedicated to like how people overcome or how people overcame those stigmas associated with prison, because most prisoners that I met, we were full of excuses. The reason why I'm this is because, or the reason why I'm here is because of that way, or because of this what happened in my life. Not saying that or discounting or showing no disrespect to anything that you've been through. But at some point in your life, like, and this is one of those defining moments that I'm about to get into in a minute, is you have a choice. As long as you have breath in your body, you have a choice. So anyway, he asked me, the counselor, I'm going to remain this, you know what, Jim Walden, rest in peace, Jim Walden. He asked me, he said, are you where you're supposed to be right now? And of course, I went and said, hell nah, I'm in prison around all these bitches and savages and blah, blah, blah. And then he asked me if I believe in God. That's where he got me. That's where he got me. Did I believe in God? I was like, of course, I believe in God. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, all of this like wondrous life that we have when it comes to the earth and all these moons and all that shit we learn in school, somebody had to create it, right? So yeah, that's a God. And so he got a little bit deeper. He asked me if um the God that I believe in, was he all powerful? I was like, yeah, the God I believe in is pretty much like he can do anything he wants. He's strong. He's like the most powerful being known to anybody, right? He was like, so what about the God that you believe in? Is he omnipresent? Meaning like he's in everywhere at all times. He's always around. I'm like, yeah, yeah, because I kind of grew up in a church environment. I strayed away like most people do, but if you're of and we're not being racist, or I think this is probably an American trait. Most Americans are brought up in somewhat religious type of family. They get some type of background. They understand who God is and like how the power of, I don't know, religion kind of affects everyone. So you can be American and not be a certain race in order to understand spirituality. All right. So I grew up and I had a base where, you know, there's God. And so he asked me about the omnipresent stuff and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, he can be everywhere. God is omnipresent. And he looked me dead in my eye. And I'm going to ask you, he said, okay, so if God wanted you to be somewhere else, do you think he would have the power to put you somewhere else? Think about that. Where you are right now, if you have some type of faith or you believe in some type of higher power or whatnot, that higher power, if he wanted you somewhere else, could he put you in that, or he or she, could they put you in that space right now? And that was some powerful shit for me. That shit blew my mind. I was like, well, yeah, it shook my faith because here I was believing that God was ever present. He was always somewhere at the same time. He was like omniscient. He was like powerful. Like he could do what the fuck he wanted. God could do what the fuck he or she wants to do. And here's this guy asking me, this white dude, he asking me, like, so that God you believe in, if he wanted you somewhere else or some shit like that, do you think he could do it? And it had me to question, like, well, God had me in a place where he wanted me to be. Right? Because I could have gave up. I definitely could have gave up, but I was like, okay, you know what? He's right. This is where the God that I believe in, where he wants me to be. And I, you know, I'm not like a cheerful person. I'm kind of getting choked up a little bit about that shit. But here it was, I was in a room with this counselor dude, and I ended up motherfucking crying, bro. I ended up crying right in front of this guy because my faith was shooken. You know, whatever faith or whatever I believed in, it was shooken because I did not believe that the God that I served or the God that I believed in or that all-powerful being and shit would want me in this shithole of a motherfucking prison. I didn't believe that shit. I didn't believe it. And that's when I started delving into, you know, finding out like, well, how the fuck I end up in this place in the first place? How the fuck did I end up in this place in the first place, bro? And most of the listeners that you are, or if you are listening, you probably went through the same shit where your faith was shaken. So please jump in the chat, jump in the windows that you have. You can jump online with me, man. It's all good. I promise you. There's no judgment here. You know what I'm saying? There's no judgment. So we're waiting on our esteemed guest, Robbie Garrett. You know, like I said, I've been knowing this guy for quite a while. Um, and you know, we all face those challenges. We kind of face some of the same challenges together. Um, and you know, those challenges can be, you know, if I talk to my wife about this shit right now, she wouldn't understand because she's known people that have been incarcerated, but not this close. Not this close. You know, because she got to deal with me when I wake up in the middle of the night on some PTSD shit, talking about like, oh shit, it was a fucking nightmare, and I was back in prison, and I didn't do anything, but they put me back in prison for no reason at fucking all, right? And I wake up like I've had like cold sweats and shit. Shout out to the people that are dealing with that shit. Like if you've ever dealt with that shit, I'd love to have you on the show to tell me exactly what those nightmares, because they're not dreams, nigga. Or did I? They're not dreams. They're nightmares. Especially if you're dedicated to doing the right thing, and all of a sudden, while you're trying to sleep and rest, you are transformed or transported to this world where everything that you've worked for is stripped away from you, right? So if you're experiencing that or have experienced that, then it's very important that you get help, and that's what this podcast is for. To put you in a group where people that have experienced similar things, I mean, and how they cope, right? And I guess like that comes to the challenges. I can't wait for Robbie to join on. I'm gonna probably just send him a text in a minute to figure out like where he's at. But like one of the most challenging parts of being incarcerated for decades is like you have a lot of time. I know you know, for me, it was being able to deal with people on a day-to-day basis, because no matter what you think about them, whether they're murderers, rapists, fucking tax launderers, fucking, I mean, real like scum of the earth, like some shit that, you know, we all broken the law. We got convicted of it. Some of us that were locked up were wrongly convicted of shit. But for the most part, we did what we did. So like being around those people, the most challenging part for me was several challenges. First of all, I think one of the biggest challenges was like, you know, seeing people leave and they end up coming back, right? Because here it is, after I had my moment with like the counselor and this aha moment, and I'm like totally focused on getting out, trying to do right and trying to make amends and all of this kind of stuff. The most challenging part was like when I saw people come back after they experienced the same thing that I experienced, and they came back, and I would have to look at them like, man, what the fuck are you doing here, bro? How the fuck you are? I've been fighting tooth and nail to get up out of this bitch, and here you are showing back up. I mean, I guess you like the fucking chow hall, you like motherfucking all this crazy shit, and your life is on the line damn near every other day. You like that kind of lifestyle, and here it is, I'm fighting to get up out of this bitch, and you back. And that was like the most challenging part for me. Well, one of them, you know. I mean, of course, like being treated by people that came in as like, you know, as a threat, right? You've been convicted, so like your threat matrix is there. I mean, you are known to you killed motherfuckers, or you've robbed people, or you've stolen, or you raped people, all this stuff, like people from the free world would come in and have to like manage you in order to do that. I'm not going to get too deep into that one because like I would want to hear your experiences and why you think, excuse me, I love gas there. Probably need to get a drink. But why you think it's difficult? Like what are some of the most challenging parts of being incarcerated for whatever time? It don't have to be a couple of decades or 30 years or 40 years and shit, because I know some of those people, and I'm quite some of you guys are out there listening are some of those people, and you face challenges. There are no doubt challenges within that environment. So it's important, guys, for you to understand, like, um, that doesn't mean this is the end for you. That doesn't mean that it's the end for you. It doesn't mean that, you can't get out and start a business. We're going to have people that were incarcerated that are now successful business owners. We're going to have people that are, working a 9-to-5 job that have started college funds, and people that actually go back into the community and are doing some things that actually helps them to redeem themselves, whether personally or within society. And I'm not talking about no court order shit. Like, this is the requirement for your ass to stay out. These people genuinely want to make a difference in the community, right? We're going to talk about some of the positive experiences or relationships that you formed during your time in prison and how that impacted you. I mean, I'm out. I know people. I've met thousands and thousands of people within the penal system. Some of them I would not talk to today. I would not talk to their ass, period, because they was on that bullshit. And if they are out now, if you kind of follow them on like social media or any of those other platforms where people can basically just like live their life on the internet and shit, I would not fuck with them, period. But there are some other meaningful relationship that I did form that we kind of chop it up, and that's what was the catalyst for this podcast. Because I would talk to them either through social media. Hell, they'll meet up in Atlanta with me or anywhere else. So I've been to Chicago, been down to Birmingham, Florida, all these places where I met these individuals, and they are now living a life. I still fuck with them. Those are the people that you meet that you can have those conversations like, damn, man, I know my girl cheating on me. I know my wife about to leave me and shit. Like real conversations. I ain't talking about that. Those conversations that go on in prison, like, okay, well, who got the dope? Or how can I get this cell phone? Or how can I get something? You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about those conversations like those survival type conversations. I'm talking about those conversations that went beyond those walls, like talking about your family or talking about how you fucked up when it came to raising your kids, or how you threw your life away by choosing to do a crime or whatever, whether you were falsely accused or whatnot, bro. You were in a situation, and those relationships, those positive relationships, were those ones that allowed you to fucking get outside the walls, to talk about your dreams, to talk about the plans, right? Excuse me. I'm getting worked up because this is like my dream baby. It's like, this whole podcast, and I'm encouraging everyone to drop in on the platform and understand, like, we're here for you. I have a team of people around me, including those entrepreneurs and business makers that are formerly incarcerated. One of my family members was incarcerated, and she's like doing extremely well. Going to try to keep her on. Some of the things we're going to talk about is like, how did you keep yourself mentally and emotionally strong over this time, right? Because I mean, let's just be honest, man. It's all kinds of shit going on. Shout out to the LGBTQ community. I mean, y'all doing y'all thing, but like for the most part, um, it's accepted. Let's talk about LGBTQ. It's accepted in prison, right? And that's that's a whole nother thing. I mean, I can remember, you know, uh, I not necessarily I dealt with them. Let's get that clear. I dealt with homosexuals and asexuals that were in prison, and that was just on like, okay, you know, coffee or what's going on in prison, because they knew shit. You know what I'm saying? They knew shit. They knew who to fuck with, who not to fuck with, who was homosexual and who was not to fuck with them. So I dealt with them on that level. You know what I'm saying? I dealt with them on that level. But now once I got out, I seen that there's some more shit. Like, it's like you can be who you want to be. Well, motherfuckers been being who they want to be for a long time behind the walls. They've been being who they wanted to be. And I could give a fuck if you fuck till you get pregnant, bro. I don't give a fuck. That I just don't get down like that. I don't get down like that. Not interested. Never thought about it. None of that shit. So that's one of the mental challenges that I think many of our guests probably dealt with. You know what I'm saying? If you dealt with it, guess what? Bitch, you can come on out now. I mean, the world is allowing that kind of conversation to happen, and you don't have nothing to worry about, because you had people that were incarcerated. I was locked up with that was like, gay or homosexual and shit like that, but they come around me or come around my partners and be like, no, I ain't fuck that motherfucker, no. But the word on the street was totally different, right? So I mean, that's what this platform is for, especially if you're living your truth now. Then you could talk about in some of the challenges that you had to face in order to overcome that, right? Now, there are many programs that are accessible within the penal system that can, I guess, reprogram you, rehabilitate. That's their word, rehabilitate you. But I'm going to give you something, and this is what the conviction fiction is about. We don't focus on rehabilitation here on the Conviction Fiction podcast. We focus on like understanding that you were not habilitated. You were not fit to fucking live. I mean, come on. You can have all those excuses that you've always had as to why you committed crimes, why you sold dope, why you felt it was necessary to rob, why you killed the motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And I say motherfucker in the most kindest terms. For people, my audience, they understand. Like, they understand why you kill somebody, bro. Like, there are a ton of excuses, but we want to focus on, like, after you've done your time, after you've done everything that you were obligated to give to the state or the feds or whatever, how you are using that survival, how are you using those survival techniques and those tactics that you used while you were in there that got you out in order to propel you to fulfill those dreams that you thought about every fucking night. Every night, I can guarantee you thought about what you're going to do, right? Every night that I was locked up, I thought about what I was going to do. Now, during the day, I was in the mix. I ain't even gonna lie. I was in the mix. I dealt with all those types of what you think criminals are. I've dealt with them on a day-to-day basis. But at night, I was focused on getting out that motherfucker. During the day, I was, I guess they call it code switching. I was code switching during the day, where I was like, hey, bro, like, yeah, they need to be fucked up, or I'm kind of promoted. I ain't gonna say like I got anyone hurt or killed or anything like that, but for the most part, like, I code switched. I did what I had to do during the day, but at night I was fucking crying internally. I was crying because I left family members. I left children, right? I left children. I left I left a spouse, right, for years on end. And then I had to really deal with why I ended up there. Why wasn't I prepared to live a life in society? You know, and I had all those excuses too. Or my parents, man, or my dad, my mama, you know, I didn't grow up with this type of lifestyle. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, or I met silver spoon babies incarcerated. I mean, hell, let's be honest, those who had the most money, like if you needed some shit out commissary, you had one of them motherfucking privileged kids up in there, then hell, you might want to befriend them because they're gonna probably be looking for safety. They're probably gonna be looking for safety. But that's what we're going to aim to do for this podcast. And moving forward, I still don't see Robbie, man. Let me try to hit him up on some platform in order to see where the hell he is at. All right, so just bear with me, guys. We're gonna take a little pause, and then we'll come right back. Okay. All right, we're back. Just reach out to Rob, and unfortunately, he had an emergency going on, so he will not be joining us today. So I'm not going to hold you guys today, but I just want you to remember why we are here. Right? We are basically, challenging the narrative surrounding incarceration and celebrating the extraordinary journeys of those like me who have overcome adversity. We believe that every individual, regardless of their past, possesses a potential for success. So this podcast, the redemption conviction, we'll delve into those stories of formerly incarcerated individuals who have transformed their lives and made a positive impact on their communities. Like I said, we're going to have entrepreneurs, business leaders, activists, organizers, tongue tied a little bit there, and we explore their journeys, the challenges that they face, and the lessons that we have learned collectively along the way. Right? We're also going to talk about the systemic issues that contribute to incarceration. I mean, we cannot deny that there are some issues with America, especially in this election season, where people are more prone to commit crimes being of a certain demographic. I'm gonna say that being of a certain demographic, and then we'll also talk about let's just be honest, like the whole the penal system has become more monetarily driven than anything. It was the easiest people to lock up. Choose your demographic. I'm not even going to say it. Choose your demographic. What do you think? Who do you think is the most likely demographic to be locked up? And then I'm going to challenge you as to why you think that demographic would be locked up more often or more so than any other demographic, right? So that's what we do. We're going to delve into criminal justice reform. I'm a little tongue-tied here, man, because, you know, I was worried about, like, Rob getting on. I hope he's okay. We'll probably delve back into it on the next episode. But I want to thank you guys for joining. This is just a smidgen of the things that we're going to be talking about on here. And I really encourage you guys to subscribe, to follow, and become a part. Like, you can send me a message via email or even on any of the social media platforms that are on, and we'll try to get you on, because I would love to hear your stories about the challenges that you have overcome and celebrate those successes that you are experiencing now, because those definitely should be celebrated. I mean, for us, it was I always go back to, like, the military, because I know a lot of family and friends that have been in the military. We was in the military. We was under some conditions. We were at war, like, you know, but we didn't get paid for it, and we were just forced to work on ourselves. So, you know, shout out to my military veterans, because I've even met veterans that were incarcerated, and, you know, they thought, like, oh, Uncle Sam was gonna come get them, but they didn't. So those are some of the challenges that we will delve into, like your unique situation, and share those stories from others like you as we try to continue to redeem ourselves, so to speak, or live our best lives. I mean, because that's what it's all about. We had those dreams, and we want to make those dreams come true, from, like, sleeping on that bunk, and now we're here. So definitely looking forward to it. My name is Antoine. I am your host of the Conviction Fiction podcast, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.